My name is Elena Harper, and I used to believe that love meant giving without limits. That belief cost me almost everything. For 34 years, I played the quiet role, the daughter who didn't cause problems, the sister who always showed up, the woman who never asked for anything back. I sent birthday cards, emergency money care packages, and apologies I didn't owe. I said yes when I wanted to say no. I answered calls at midnight. I picked up pieces no one admitted they broke. And still, somehow, I was the problem. The night they voted me out of the family, I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I didn't even blink. Because what they didn't realize was by the time they made their decision, I had already made mine. It happened over dinner, Thanksgiving. The table was too full as always, turkey too dry, wine flowing like it could lubricate fake laughter. I was seated between my cousin Claire and the radiator that never worked. They always gave me that spot. Uncomfortable out of the way like a placeholder for someone more important. Natalie, my younger sister, was across from me wearing that champagne colored blouse she bought for appearances, not comfort. She stood up halfway through the meal just as my mother was preparing to carve the turkey. I have something to say before we start, she said, her voice full of sugar and poison. It's important. Everyone stopped. Forks frozen midair, eyes turned. Even the dog stopped chewing the napkin under the table. And in that silence, she dropped it. We had a vote, she said, and Elena, you're not part of this family anymore. I didn't even flinch, because I knew. That kind of betrayal doesn't erupt, it simmers, it builds. And for years, I'd felt it coming. In their glances, in their jokes, in the way they always needed me but never sat beside me. I knew the moment was coming. I just didn't know it would arrive with applause. Claire clapped like she was at a Broadway show. My uncle chuckled into his bourbon. And my mother actually laughed. Well, someone had to say it, she said, reaching for the cranberry sauce. My father didn't look at me, just stared at his plate and muttered, it's probably for the best. I pushed my chair back slowly. You guys rehearsed this, didn't you? Natalie smiled wider. It wasn't hard. You've been toxic for years. We're just done pretending. Toxic, I repeated softly, like tasting a word that had never belonged to me until they forced it into my mouth. My mother chimed in without looking up. It was unanimous. I looked around. No one disagreed. No one asked her to stop, not one person. Good, I said. I reached into my bag, pulled out the folder, thick gray cold, and placed it in the center of the table. The sound it made sliced through the room like a second announcement. A better one. What's that? Natalie asked. I leaned back in my chair and crossed my arms. Why don't you find out? She opened it, confident at first, like someone unwrapping a gift they assume is expensive. Her smirk was still there when she flipped the first page, but it didn't last. Not past the second page, not past the screenshots, the receipts, the emails, the Venmo transactions, the invoice from her plastic surgeon, the credit card bill I paid when Joel, her husband, was supposedly laid off. By the third page, the color had drained from her face, and by the fifth, she screamed. Not metaphorically, not in shock. A scream that cracked the air. A scream like something had been ripped out of her. She stood up so fast her chair toppled. The folder slammed shut like it burned her hands. You had no right, she started. But Joel had already picked up the folder. He read silently. His eyebrows rose. His lips parted. And then his face collapsed like a man watching the house he thought he built crumble into sawdust. It's all true, I said softly. Every word, every number, every lie. Silence. My mother opened her mouth, closed it again. Joel pointed at a line on one page. $4.200. Hotel charges. Santa Monica. Guest name, Natalie. Companion, Alyssa. His voice cracked. What is this? Natalie didn't answer. She didn't have one. And I didn't need to speak. I had already spoken. I had spent years being the version of myself that kept them comfortable. The invisible glue, the walking ATM, the one who worked late, stayed quiet, paid bills behind the scenes, and never once asked, "What about me?" They called it love, but it was a leash, and I had finally unclipped it. The thing about betrayal is it never starts big. It starts with little comments. Must be nice to have all that free time, huh? Of course you could help. You don't have kids. God, Elena, you're so put together. You're lucky your life is so simple. Simple. That's what they called it. They didn't see the hours I poured into work because I had no one else to fall back on. They didn't see the nights I stayed up doing spreadsheets for my sanity because therapy wasn't in the budget. They didn't know that silence wasn't peace. It was the price I paid to be accepted. And they never asked. Natalie was always the center of attention. Cheer squad. Honor student until she wasn't. She flunked out of college, twice said she needed time to find herself, and took a sabbatical in Europe. Paid for by my parents, then partially by me when she came home broke but enlightened. She married Joel, who looked like a business podcast in human form. Together, they were the golden couple. Glossy photos, couple goals. Behind the scenes, credit card debt, car repairs, emotional meltdowns I was always expected to fix from a distance. When they couldn't pay for the wedding, I covered half. My parents took a cruise the month after. I didn't say anything. When dad needed emergency dental surgery, I wrote the check. When mom's credit card hit max limit from buying household things that mysteriously included a designer bag, I transferred the money. When Laura's scholarship fell through, I helped with tuition. No one asked if I could afford it. They just assumed I could and, more importantly, would. Because I had no husband, no children, no real responsibilities according to them. But you know what the real reason was? They knew I wouldn't say no, and that was my fault. I taught them how to treat me. I smiled when they joked about me being the family bank. I laughed when they called me independent like it was a diagnosis. I picked up the tab, the pieces, the guilt. Every time. It started as love, it ended as obligation, and then came the loan. Natalie texted me, breezy casual. "Hey sis, Joel and I are thinking of starting a wellness cafe. Could you co-sign a small business loan for us? You know, banks love your credit score." I read it, I stared at it, then finally I said what I should have said years ago. No. Just that. No explanation, no apology. Just 3 letters that shattered the fantasy. She didn't respond. Not for 3 weeks. And then suddenly the cold shoulder. My mother stopped calling. My father answered texts with one-word replies. I wasn't invited to the next family dinner. Natalie posted a quote on Instagram. "Sometimes you have to cut out toxic people to find peace." And I was done. Not angry, not broken. Just done. That's when I started gathering everything. At first, it was practical emails, receipts, Venmo records. I was organizing, not weaponizing. But the more I saw, the more I remembered. $8,000 for Joel's rehab. $2,300 for Natalie's emergency dental that turned out to be a cosmetic procedure. $1,500 for Dad's spine injections. $12,000 to help Mom get out of credit card hell. $4,500 for a family emergency that turned out to be a trip to Cabo. And never, not once, did anyone offer to pay it back. They just expected me to do it because I was Elena, the reliable one, the helper, the one who had nothing else going on. So I made the folder, not out of vengeance, out of clarity. Because when people erase your sacrifices and rewrite the story to cast you as the villain, you learn to keep the receipts. I included everything. Every transaction, every text, every fake thank you laced with entitlement. Screenshots of Natalie calling me a cash cow with no boundaries in a private group chat. A timeline of every loan gift bailout and broken promise. Even photos from their vacation, the one they said was an emergency where they toasted cocktails in front of the ocean. It wasn't about exposing them. It was about finally telling the truth. And on Thanksgiving night, when Natalie stood there in her designer blouse and said, I wasn't part of the family anymore, I realized something. They never saw me as family to begin with. They saw me as support, as backup, as a lifeline they didn't respect, only relied on. So when I handed her the folder, I wasn't retaliating. I was retiring. And when she screamed, when Joel's face cracked, when my mother reached for words and found none, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt free and terrified. Because when you've been needed, your whole life being free can feel like abandonment, even when you're the one who was abandoned first. But I didn't cry. Not yet. That would come later. After the silence. After the letters. After the pleas, just this once, voicemails that mistook access for affection. I didn't know it yet, but that night I didn't just walk away from a dinner table. I walked into the first chapter of my own life. After the folder, after the silence, after the screaming and gasps and the stunned clinking of wine glasses came the quiet. It didn't arrive all at once. It crept in like a tide that didn't ask permission, slow, cold cleansing. I didn't go home that night. I didn't even know where I was going when I pulled out of the driveway. My hands shook on the steering wheel for the first 5 minutes. And then they didn't. I ended up at a place I hadn't seen in years, the old lake on the edge of town where my dad used to take me fishing before I stopped being a daughter and started being an asset. The water was still, no one was there. I sat in my car engine off, headlights dimmed, and for the first time in over a decade, nothing was waiting on me. No emergency, no overdue bill, no one needing a ride, a favor, a miracle. Just stillness. I slept like a child that night, and the next night, and the one after that. For 3 days, I didn't hear a word, no calls, no texts, just the low hum of peace I hadn't known I was missing. Then the messages started. A voicemail from my mother. She sounded small. We were angry. We shouldn't have said what we said. You're still our daughter. Then Natalie, you really don't get it, do you? Joel's leaving me. Because of you, you've destroyed everything. Then my father, you crossed a line. I don't know who you think you are, but this family needs help. And you're still blood, Elena. Don't forget that. I didn't reply, and I expected to feel guilty. I did. I really thought I would. I had been conditioned to feel guilt like muscle memory. But the longer the silence stretched, the more I realized something. I wasn't their villain. I had simply stopped playing their savior. I changed my emergency contacts, froze the joint accounts they had access to, blocked numbers, made appointments I'd postponed for years. Therapist, dentist, primary care. Not because I was broken, but because for the first time I was allowed to take care of myself. I started cooking meals for one and not apologizing for it. I jogged without looking at my phone. I walked past family photo frames without feeling that pinch in my gut. I wasn't healing out of spite. I was healing because I'd finally stopped leaking myself into people who didn't know how to hold me. A week after Thanksgiving, Claire, the cousin who clapped at the vote, messaged me. I didn't know you paid for my semester. I'm sorry. I followed the others. You were always the one who actually showed up. I read it twice, then deleted it. Another week passed. Joel texted me. I filed for divorce. Everything in that folder checked out. She lied, manipulated, not just you, me too. Then the line I didn't expect. You did the right thing. I should have listened to you years ago. It didn't feel like victory. It felt like a bell finally being rung in a room that had always been silent. By mid December, I had applied for a new job in a different city. I wasn't running away. I was just done shrinking. And in that new place, in a small apartment with more light than furniture, I woke up one morning and felt it. Stillness, not numbness, not absence, stillness. Then came Christmas. December 22nd, a text from my mother, just a picture, their living room, tree up, stockings, lights. And in the center, an awkward gaping space where the presents usually went. Caption, it doesn't feel the same without you. Ellie keeps asking why Aunt Elena's not coming this year. No apology, just an emotional lure wrapped in guilt. I didn't answer. December 23rd, Natalie called. I let it ring. Then the message came. I know I messed up, but Ellie misses you. Can't you come by for just a few minutes? 2 minutes later, another message. Mom and dad are behind on their mortgage. I know you don't care anymore, but the bank called, thought you'd want to know. There it was. The ask, buried between a child's name and a financial bomb. I blocked the number. December 24th, another text, this time from dad. You made your point. Enough is enough. We need help. We're still your blood. That night, I sat by my fireplace with a glass of red wine. No tree, no noise, just the crackle of warmth I built myself. And I smiled, not because I was triumphant, because I was finally irreversibly free. January came with a phone call from an unfamiliar number. I answered without thinking. Ms. Harper. Yes. My name is Mark. I'm calling on behalf of your father. He mentioned you're the primary on the family trust. I'm not, I said. That was revoked months ago. A pause. I see. He said he couldn't reach you directly and asked me to explore options. I hung up before he finished. They weren't desperate for me. They were desperate for what I had always given, and I was done giving it. But the final straw came in February. A letter. No return address, but the handwriting was unmistakable. My mother. 3 pages. The first regret. We said things in anger. You've always been the strong one. We leaned on you more than we realized. The second guilt. Your father's health is fragile. Natalie's alone now. Ellie's confused. We miss you. The third, the ask. We're selling the house, but we're underwater. Just a little help one more time. Then we'll never ask again. Please, do it for the family. I sat with that letter. Let myself feel every trick they'd ever used. The layered guilt, the desperate kindness, the weight of duty disguised as love. Then I folded it, stood up, walked it to the trash can, and let it go. Because what they were asking for wasn't help. It was access. Access to the version of me who didn't say no, who paid without hesitation, who heard in silence to make them more comfortable. But that version of me, she's gone. I'm not their fixer, not their golden goose, not their silent shield. I am Elena Harper, and I am done. I started waking up without dread. I started remembering who I was before the guilt, before the role, before they turned love into a transaction. I got the job, moved to the city, planted herbs in the window, started dating again, reconnected with friends who told me, we always wondered why you disappeared. And for the first time, I answered honestly because I forgot I deserved better. Some people might say I abandoned them, but I didn't. I abandoned the lie that being needed was the same as being loved. And a few days ago, one last letter arrived. No return address, just 3 words on a card. We're still family. No apology, no context, just the old fishing hook dressed in nostalgia. I didn't cry, didn't rage, didn't feel a thing. I set it on the counter, made dinner, and as I stood in my kitchen, barefoot holding a wooden spoon, smiling at nothing in particular, I whispered to no one. I know. Then I turned up the music and danced in the soft light of my own life. The one they never built for me, the one they never believed I could have without them, and the one I finally claimed completely, freely, fully for myself.